British Columbia is in the grip of a wildfire emergency that keeps growing, and the numbers now tell a staggering story. Across the province, wildfires have burned through more than 500,000 hectares of land, an area so vast it is difficult to even picture, and the total continues to climb, as the fires spread across the rugged interior and beyond. The response has escalated with them, and evacuation orders are expanding day by day, driving more and more people from their homes as the flames advance on communities across the province. This is a fast-moving and dangerous crisis, and right now, British Columbia is bracing for what may be one of the most intense stretches of the entire fire season. 500,000 hectares. It is a number that should stop anyone cold because it represents an almost unimaginable expanse of forest, grassland, and wilderness reduced to ash and blackened ground. And it is not a static figure, a final tally to be recorded and set aside. It is a total that keeps rising, growing with each hot, dry, windy day as the fires push into new territory and fresh blazes ignite across the landscape. Behind that number are dozens of individual fires, some of them enormous, burning across the province and threatening the communities in their path. And behind the expanding evacuations are thousands of people whose lives have been upended, forced to flee their homes into an uncertain and frightening limbo. In this video, we are going to break down exactly what is happening across British Columbia right now. We will look at the staggering scale of the land that is burned, the regions where the fires are concentrated, and the communities under threat as the flames advance. We will examine the expanding evacuations that are driving people from their homes, the choking smoke spreading across the province, and the exhausted crews working around the clock to hold the line. And we will explore why this fire season has become so severe and what the days ahead may hold. Stay with us, because this is a serious and still growing emergency, and understanding what is unfolding across British Columbia right now matters for everyone in its path. Hashtag 500,000 hectares and climbing. To grasp the gravity of what British Columbia is facing, you first have to sit with the sheer scale of the destruction, because more than 500,000 hectares burned is a truly enormous figure. A hectare is a unit of area, and 500,000 of them laid side by side would form a scorched expanse larger than many entire cities and regions combined. A swath of the province so vast that if you tried to travel its full extent, you would be journeying across a landscape of burned and burning ground for a very long distance in every direction. This is not a localized disaster confined to one valley or one corner of the province. It is a transformation of an immense portion of the landscape, and that number captures only the land itself. It does not capture the forests lost, the wildlife displaced or killed, the watersheds damaged, or the homes and structures destroyed within that vast area. A burned landscape on this scale does not simply grow back the following spring. The soil can be scorched and destabilized, leaving slopes prone to erosion and, when the rains eventually come, to flooding and debris flows. Habitat that took decades or centuries to develop can be erased in a matter of days. The recovery of a landscape this large is measured not in weeks or months, but in years and even decades, a long process of healing for the land and the ecosystems that depend on it. What makes the figure even more alarming is that it keeps climbing. This is not the aftermath of a disaster being tallied and cleaned up. It is an active, ongoing emergency with the fires still burning, still spreading, and still adding to the total with each passing day. Every hot, dry, windy day pushes the number higher, and as long as the conditions remain extreme, the danger is that the burned area will keep growing, the fires will keep advancing, and the total will climb further still. When you hear that more than 500,000 hectares have burned, understand that it is not a final number. It is a snapshot of a disaster still very much in motion. Hashtag A Province Under Siege. The fires burning across British Columbia are not concentrated in a single place. They are spread across the province, and especially across its vast interior, the drier country of rolling hills, grasslands, forests, and rugged terrain away from the wetter coast. It is here, in the interior, that the landscape has been baked by heat and starved of moisture, turning the vegetation into ready fuel and setting the stage for the fast-moving, aggressive fire behavior that has driven this crisis. Across this region, fire after fire has ignited and grown, some of them swelling into enormous blazes that threaten communities and consume vast stretches of the land. Certain areas have become focal points of the emergency, places where fires have grown large and aggressive enough to threaten communities directly and to drive urgent evacuations. In parts of the interior, fires have advanced toward towns and villages, and in some cases separate blazes have grown until they merged into larger fires, pushing across the landscape and even across the highways that connect the region. When a fire crosses a major road, it is more than a symbolic milestone. It is a practical crisis, because those highways are the lifelines that people depend on to evacuate and that crews depend on to move equipment and reinforcements. A fire that jumps a major route can sever a community's escape and complicate the entire response, forcing officials to act with the greatest urgency. Expanding the evacuation zones and rushing to get people out while the remaining roads are still passable. This is the nature of the emergency gripping British Columbia. It is not one villain in one valley, but a scattered and shifting collection of dangerous fires, each capable of forcing people from their homes, each demanding its own share of the province's stretched firefighting resources, and each adding to the mounting total of land burned. When a province faces this many significant fires at once, spread across such a vast and rugged area, the challenge multiplies, and the entire system of response is pushed to its limits. British Columbia is, in a very real sense, a province under siege, fighting on many fronts at once against an enemy that keeps finding new ground to burn. Hashtag the expanding evacuations. As the fires have spread and grown, the evacuations have expanded with them, and this is one of the most visible and painful signs of a crisis that is escalating rather than easing. Across British Columbia, evacuation orders and alerts have been multiplying, driving more and more people from their homes as the flames advance. When a fire threatens a community, the authorities must make the agonizing decision to get people out, and this season, that decision has had to be made again and again in community after community as the danger has spread across the province. The evacuation system in British Columbia generally works through stages. It begins with an evacuation alert, which tells residents that a threat is developing and that they should be ready to leave on short notice, to prepare their vehicles, gather their essentials, and be mentally and practically ready to go. Then, when the danger grows too great, comes the evacuation order, the most serious step, which tells residents that they must leave immediately, that staying puts their lives at risk. As the fires have grown and spread, both alerts and orders have expanded across the province, with new areas being added as the flames advance, so that the map of the emergency keeps growing, the zones of danger keeps widening, and more people find themselves caught up in the crisis. For the people forced to flee, it is a wrenching and frightening experience. Imagine watching the smoke thicken on the horizon, receiving the alert that tells you to be ready, and then the order that tells you to go. You have minutes to gather your loved ones, your pets, and whatever you can carry, and to drive away, not knowing whether your home will still be standing when or if. You are allowed to return. You join a line of your neighbors on the road, all of you fleeing the same advancing threat, all of you carrying the same fear and uncertainty. And in the rural and remote areas that make up so much of the interior, evacuation can be especially difficult, with great distances to travel, limited routes out, and particular challenges for the elderly. For those without reliable transportation, and for those with livestock and animals that cannot easily be moved. The expanding evacuations are the human heart of this emergency, a growing wave of displacement that has touched community after community across the province. Hashtag the smoke that spreads across the province, one of the most far-reaching effects of these wildfires, reaches well beyond the flames themselves, affecting people across the province and even far beyond its borders. That effect is smoke. When fires burn on this scale, across more than 500,000 hectares, they produce an immense volume of smoke, and that smoke does not stay put. It rises into the atmosphere and drifts on the winds across vast distances, spreading a pall of haze far beyond the fire zones and degrading the air quality over enormous areas, affecting the health and the daily lives of huge numbers of people who may never see a flame. The smoke from British Columbia's fires has blanketed communities across the province and spread outward, turning skies hazy, dimming the sun, and prompting air quality warnings across wide areas. Wildfire smoke is genuinely hazardous to breathe, filled with fine particles that can penetrate deep into the lungs and cause a range of health problems, from irritated eyes and throats and coughing to more serious effects. It is especially dangerous for vulnerable groups, for children, the elderly, pregnant women, and people with heart or lung conditions such as asthma, for whom a heavy smoke event can be genuinely dangerous. When the smoke settles over a region, the guidance is to stay indoors as much as possible, to keep windows and doors closed, to use air filtration where available, and to limit strenuous outdoor activity as the very air becomes a hazard. For many people across British Columbia, the smoke is the most direct way they experience this crisis, a thick and choking haze that fouls the sky and serves as a constant, visible reminder of the vast burning happening across the province. It disrupts daily life in countless ways, keeping people indoors, canceling outdoor activities and events, and casting a pall over entire communities. And when the fires are as large and as numerous as they have been this season, that smoke can be relentless, blanketing the region for days at a time, a pervasive and unhealthy shroud that underscores the enormous scale of what is burning across the land. #an intense week on the front line standing against these fires are the firefighters and emergency crews, whose work throughout this difficult season has been nothing short of heroic, and who now face what officials have warned may be an especially intense and demanding stretch. These are the men and women who have spent the long, brutal weeks of this fire season battling blazes across the rugged and remote landscape of the province, working in punishing conditions, and the heat and the smoke far from support, to protect the communities and the forests of British Columbia. And as the fires continue to grow and the conditions remain dangerous, their task grows only harder. Fighting wildfires in the vast and rugged terrain of British Columbia is grueling and perilous work. The crews must reach remote fires across difficult country, building fire breaks, protecting threatened communities, and working to slow the advance of fires that are being driven relentlessly by heat and wind. They are supported from the air by aircraft that drop water and fire retardant on the flames, attacking the blazes in places that ground crews cannot safely reach. It is exhausting, dangerous labor, conducted over long shifts in hazardous conditions, and in a season as severe as this one, with so many fires burning across such a wide area, the demand on these crews has been immense, stretching the available resources to their limits and often requiring reinforcements to be brought in from other regions. The warning that the province may be facing an especially intense firefighting stretch underscores just how precarious the situation remains. When the conditions align against the crews, hot temperatures, low humidity, and gusty winds, the fires can grow more aggressive and more dangerous, spreading faster and behaving more unpredictably, putting the firefighters at greater risk and making the work of containment far harder. The people fighting these fires are the human wall standing between the flames and the communities in their path, and in this severe and still growing season, they are being tested as rarely before. The gratitude owed to them and to all the emergency personnel working around the clock to keep people safe is beyond measure. #Why British Columbia is burning it is natural to ask how the province reached this point, with more than 500,000 hectares burned and the fires still spreading. And the answer lies in a combination of conditions that have converged to create a dangerous environment for wildfire. The most fundamental factor is the weather. Wildfires thrive on heat, dryness, and wind, and this season, much of British Columbia has experienced conditions that have primed the landscape to burn. Prolonged heat and a lack of adequate rainfall have dried out the forests and grasslands, especially across the interior, turning the vegetation into ready fuel and creating the tender, dry conditions in which fires ignite easily and spread rapidly. Drought and dryness are the great enablers of a severe fire season. When the landscape is parched, when the moisture has been baked out of the vegetation, any ignition can quickly grow into a serious fire, and when wind is added to the mix, it becomes a powerful accelerant, pushing flames across the land, carrying embers ahead to start new spot fires, and turning a manageable blaze into a fast-moving, community-threatening front in a matter of hours. Lightning, too, is a major source of ignition in the vast wilderness of the province, where storms can hurl strikes into the dry forest and start fires far from any help, sometimes many at once. When a spark of any kind meets a landscape this dry under weather this extreme, the result can be explosive. Behind these immediate conditions lies a broader reality that British Columbia, like much of the region, has been experiencing more frequent and more intense fire seasons in recent years, as hotter and drier conditions lengthen the fire season and create more opportunities for extreme fire behavior. The province has endured devastating fire years before, and this season is another chapter in a pattern that has made these large and dangerous fire events increasingly familiar. Whatever the precise mix of factors in any given year, the result this season has been a landscape primed to burn, and burn it has, on a scale that has driven the total past 500,000 hectares and left an entire province grappling with the consequences. Hashtag what residents need to know. For anyone in British Columbia affected by these fires, staying informed and prepared is absolutely essential, and it can make the difference between safety and danger. The single most important principle is to pay close attention to official information and warnings, to monitor the situation for your area, and to be ready to act quickly, because the fires are moving fast. The evacuations are expanding, and conditions can change in an instant. If you are in a region threatened by wildfire, take evacuation alerts and orders with the utmost seriousness. When you are placed on an alert, treat it as your signal to prepare in earnest, gathering essential documents, medications, and irreplaceable belongings, planning your route out, and making arrangements for pets and animals. And when an evacuation order is issued, leave immediately, without hesitation, because in a fast-moving fire, the time to escape can be very short. Prepare before any order arrives. Have an emergency kit ready with water, food, medications, important documents, a change of clothes, and supplies for children and pets. Know more than one route out of your area, in case the primary road is blocked by fire or by traffic. Keep your vehicle fueled during the fire season. Make sure you are signed up to receive local emergency notifications so that warnings reach you as quickly as possible. And talk with your family about a plan so that if you are separated when an emergency strikes. Everyone knows where to go and how to reconnect. For those with livestock or large animals, plan early, because moving them takes time you may not have once a fire is close. Protect yourself from the smoke as well as the flames. When the air quality is poor, stay indoors as much as possible. Keep your home sealed against the outside air. Use filtration if you have it. And take special care of the vulnerable people in your life, the very young, the very old, and those with health conditions. And look out for your neighbors, especially those who may need help evacuating or coping with the smoke. Because in an emergency like this, communities come through by taking care of one another. Above all, do not underestimate the danger of this moment. And respect the warnings and the guidance of the emergency officials who are working around the clock to keep people safe. Hashtag the days ahead as this emergency continues to unfold. The days ahead hold great uncertainty, and much depends on the weather. Fire seasons live and die by conditions, and the difference between fires that keep growing and threatening communities and ones that crews can finally begin to contain often comes down to a shift in temperature, humidity, and wind. A break in the heat, a rise in moisture, a calming of the winds, or best of all, a soaking rain could give the firefighters the opening they need to gain ground and slow the fires driving the evacuations. But continued hot, dry, and windy conditions could drive further growth, push the burn total even higher, and threaten still more communities, expanding the evacuations further before any relief arrives. The firefighters and emergency crews will keep working around the clock, prioritizing the protection of lives above all else, calling in resources from wherever they can be found, and adapting their response as the fires and the weather evolve. Some of the fires burning now will eventually be brought under control, while others may continue to grow and new ones may ignite. Through it all, the communities of British Columbia will continue the hard work of enduring, of evacuating and sheltering and supporting one another, and eventually of returning and rebuilding when the danger has passed. The province has faced severe fire seasons before, and its people have shown remarkable resilience and strength in the face of them, and they will need that strength again now, as they confront a season that has already burned so much and shows no sign of releasing its grip. For now, though, the emergency remains acute. More than 500,000 hectares burned, and the total still climbing. Evacuations expanding across the province, communities under threat, smoke spreading far and wide, and exhausted crews battling on the front lines through what may be an especially intense stretch. This is a serious and still growing crisis for British Columbia, a wildfire emergency that has upended countless lives and transformed vast stretches of the landscape. Our thoughts are with everyone affected, with the families forced from their homes, with the communities living under threat, and with the brave crews battling the flames. If you are in the affected regions, stay alert, stay informed, and stay safe. Heed the warnings, follow the guidance of the officials, and do not take chances with these fast-moving flames. And to everyone watching, keep the people of British Columbia in your thoughts as they face down this fierce and expanding emergency. And hold on to the hope that cooler days and calmer winds, and the relief of gentle rain will soon arrive to bring this weary province the respite it so